Yo, what up? I'm Phil Rivers. This is Ignore the Headlines.
All right, Phil Rivers, thank you.
What's
I had to beg, borrow, and steal to get you on. All your all your handlers. I had to do everything in my power. I had to send direct mail.
The listeners, they should believe everything they hear.
That's right. No, like 5%. So thank you for popping on. So I want you to give everyone a background, like last 5 to 10 years of what you've done, and then also what you're really focused on right now.
All right, I'll give my super high level background. So I'm born and raised LA, moved to New York 10 years ago to New York City. Knew no one, had no money, figured it out. Ultimately, I was fascinated with SaaS and startups at the time, and was little by little jaded by life, realizing that what you're sold really isn't what you get in the startup world. So anyways, I had a side hustle that was pretty much just like arbing agency services, media buying, web design, email, and stuff, and ultimately left my last software job just to go all in on just like figuring out my own thing. And I cut all the stuff I was arbing with the exception of email at the time, because it was my greatest strength and what I had the most confidence in. And so it's like, oh, I could sell this and do it. And at the time I wanted 0 employees, 0 overhead. I just wanted it to be just me.
Yeah.
And at the same time I had a e-com store supplement line I was self-funding. And I was running that business as if I had raised, but I hadn't. So I was paying all this money for acquisition, but the churn kept happening, but I didn't have enough money to get far enough along. So Perfect. It was like treading water, slowly dying. And I had a conversation with my dad and about this scenario. I have these 2 businesses. He's like, dude, you have 1 foot on the dock, 1 foot on the boat. You need to commit to one thing. And based on where the agency is at the time, that's probably going to be your thing, but you have to make your own decision. Ultimately, that was the decision. And then I quickly realized that if I'm going to run a real business, I can't just be me. Otherwise, I'm just a glorified freelancer, and I don't have 1 boss. I have 10 bosses now.
Right.
And so then ultimately, I just focused, put my head down, and started building the agency. And this is in 2018. And now, fast forward, there's been obviously a ton of lessons along the way from growing from a marketing, selling, operational standpoint. But now I recently merged with another agency. We have a team of 30, 35 people. And now it's much different than what I obviously initially envisioned in 2017 when I got into this racket in the first place. Yeah.
Well, we're going to dive into that decision to merge, but congrats. And, it's interesting to me because everyone says, I don't want to have a boss. I don't want to have a boss. I want to be my own man. I don't want to screw the man. All of that, right? All the cliches. You merge with someone. Do you feel like don't go into any other details and simply, do you feel like there's kind of a man now, partially, or no? That's not how it's set up.
Not really. I think that the biggest learning experience for me is me getting accustomed to not having everything, all the problems come to me and now they go to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's, and getting comfortable with that. I'm used to having 10 people come to me with their problems, whatever they be, whatever those problems are, every day. Now I don't really hear about any problems. And so, but in terms of my relationship with my now partner, I don't feel that way. I don't feel like I have a boss.
Cool. Yeah. So true partner, that's what it feels like. And even operationally, there's a lot of burden's been lifted off. So that feels nice. Okay, cool. So I was talking to you probably 6 months ago, I think 4 to 6 months ago, and you introduced
4 to 6, I think 4.
Yeah. You introduced the idea that, you might be interested in merging, selling, but you weren't sure. And we kind of went back and forth on that, some good conversations. And I'm, in my world, in what I'm doing, pretty much everything is to build or buy and hold long term, but I want assets, operating companies that are sellable. I want the optionality, but I don't really intend to sell. right? And some of that is probably out of control. Some of it is the way that the businesses are being managed financially. And so it's just kind of my whole direction is to keep them. So 4 years ago, you started having some success. I think maybe even 2 years ago, it really started to have like a pretty big uptick from a gross revenue perspective. Were you already thinking at that time, hey, I might build something here that I could really sell and have like a win? Or was this, we started talking about it 4 months ago. Is that when that really started to enter your mind, or had you been thinking potentially about selling for a while?
What I had thought about it 2 years ago was really just the optionality of right now. I am a big component of this business, so would not be in a position to sell.
Right.
But at some point, I'm an entrepreneur through and through at the end of the day. And I told you this when you and I first met, that I made this commitment to myself when I committed to the agency in 2018, based on my dad's advice, that I wasn't going to be distracted by other things until the business got to a place where I was afforded the opportunity to do that. And so I was just like, I was at that juncture, right? You and I talked about it when we met initially this year. And so when like 2 years ago, it was really just like, it was not like I'm going to sell, but rather I want to build this so I have the option to sell or put in an operator so I can back out. And it's essentially, I'm holding this company. I can focus on whatever I want. And it was like little by little starting to get there where, because now I was at that point where I could start to bite off something else if I wanted to, where I was backed out to the little by little. So I had the freedom to do that.
Cool. So you talked to a couple different groups that were interested, and I think this is helpful for people that are right on the beginning of their entrepreneurial journey. I think it's good to have some sort of intention, and it feels a little unfair to just always say, "Oh, I just want optionality." Like we both just said that, but I do think you have to have some like binary. I like options, but I'm kind of going this route or that route. Mm-hmm. You got to a point where you decided, all right, I'm interested in selling, merging, however you want to phrase that. And so I think it's good for people that are kind of young or early on in their entrepreneurial journey to know, hey, where I start isn't necessarily where I have to end, but I do think it's important to build towards one intention or the other. It's hard to live in that in-between constantly. And I think you were heads down, like you said, like I wanted to build something that was kind of exitable. Is that a word? I don't know.
I don't know, but we can make it a word.
So it's just making up words on Ignore the Headlines is what we do. So you got to that point, and then how did you go about that? You said, all right, I'm kind of interested, or did people come to you and just by happenstance, you were kind of in that zone of, your seller's, not your buyer's window, but your seller's window. Is that what happened organically, or did you go out and start to tell people you were interested?
Yeah. So I had, at the time I had thought that the business will be in a position to sell and I'll be ready to in 12 to 24 months. Mm-hmm. Right. At that point, either I'm still operating, but I'm operating as if I'm W-2 sort of employee, so I could be replaced like it's set up, or there's another operator there at that point in time, and I could exit if I wanted to. But what happened was I had 4 or 5 different parties hit me up within like a week's time and asked me if I'd be interested in selling unsolicited. So I didn't tweet about this, that I was interested in it. I didn't say a word to anyone because I wasn't. And then I was like, I'm not very religious, but I was like, this is intriguing that 4 independent parties hit me up at the relatively same time to ask me about this. I was like, I should at least entertain the
It's a sign.
Yeah, pretty much. And so it was pretty clear out of the gate that 2 of the parties we just weren't aligned just from a strictly valuation standpoint and what the after scenario of an acquisition looked like. So out of the gate, that was a no-go. And so it came down to 2 different parties, and one of them, they wanted me to just be out entirely. Like they wanted to buy 100%, and I would have an earn out, and I'd be done. But also, part of the reason why I didn't want that outcome is because, one, I wasn't ready to be out. But then 2, the last 2 years of the business, a lot of what I had been doing was selling sort of like, I'll say consulting coaching rather than agency
Right.
services, which has a much lower LTV than agency
Mhm.
services. And so the value that was pinned on the business was partially in terms of the trailing 12 months was off of a business model that I would say in retrospect is flawed.
Mm.
And so I wasn't ready to sell outright at this point because I felt like I would be giving up upside that I would naturally accumulate just by letting time pass and continuing
Yeah.
to build on the agency model and not the consulting model. And so with those folks, I was just like, we're just not aligned here, and I'm shortchanging myself, so it didn't
Yeah.
make sense.
Got it.
And the other party, it was really just like more. It was we were aligned from a vision standpoint. We were aligned from where what I want to do and what my strengths are, where I want to be spending my time, and it just made a lot more sense than all the three other folks that had hit me up about it.
Cool. So how long ago was that you actually closed on that?
I would say roughly 2 months.
And you're West Coast, you're California. Where are they based?
No,
That's right. Wait, you weren't you? Oh, that's right.
Born in LA.
That's right.
Live in New York.
And are they New York?
They're Northeast.
Gotcha.
DC.
Okay. Cool. So it's been a couple months. Honeymoon phase fading is kind of, and what I mean by that, it's not negative, but kind of the excitement of that happening is kind of over, I think, or you're close to that. You're kind of in this new normal. And how do you feel? It's like no remorse.
So for me, for me, maybe this is just unique to my experience. I think the honeymoon phase hasn't started.
Oh,
yet.
okay.
And for me, it's really just been sort of like the integration of the team, of the clients, communications. And so it's been a lot of like what I would say is sort of just like in the trenches, dirty work thus far. And that's why I'm really excited for August, September to really sink my teeth in to the stuff that are the reason why I did the deal. You know, and so that's why I think like I don't think the honeymoon phase is here yet. That's why. So I'm particularly excited for the next 30, 60 days.
All right, that makes sense. I hadn't really thought of it like that. I mean, yeah, I can see how it's not so awesome just dealing with all the logistics and operations
and all the admin stuff that comes with it. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just like so. It's like deal happens, but then there's all this new stuff to do to sort of clean up the mess that we just made by doing the deal.
And what's the process from a brand perspective and like client's relationship to this organization?
Yeah, so on the client side, I pretty much just communicated with them that this happened. We're just pretty much operating under a different nomenclature now, but their main touch points, everything else will be run the same. And gave them some context into like why we're here, in essence. But it's pretty just like I don't know. It's kind of just came and went on the client side. And there's a few clients I have like really good relationships with. So I told them, I spoke to them differently than others about it, given track record, tenure, or what have you. But overall, it was like I don't know. I didn't really think anything of it. It just sort of.
Well, I mean, I think that's for a lot of people nice to hear because they think, oh man, it's going to be so painful. People are almost frozen. Like, oh, I don't want to have to go through that with my clients and these relationships. And Phil's like, no big deal. It's fine.
I mean, it's just it's just the nature of the game. It's uncomfortable at the time. Like you asked me before I started, I was like, I wasn't super tight about it, but I was like, who knows? Like it could go either way. And then it happened. I'm like,
did anyone churn because of the transition?
No.
Yeah,
not
that's awesome.
Transition.
Good. So you and I both are kind of family guys, and so what, if anything, with this whole change has been positive or negative, or like was informed by your family?
I wouldn't say informed. I would say one of the biggest things for me to get used to is not operating the finances of the business, is having fewer ownership benefits
Sure.
than I once had. So that's takes getting used to. And so really, I told my wife, I was like, "Yo, things are going to be different for a period of time while we navigate the transition. But don't worry, I got you. We'll be back." And so, but from a familial standpoint, not really. Like my daughter's so young, she's just oblivious, right? But with my wife, she was really much just like, I trust your intuition. If you want to do this, I know I don't understand in essence, but I know you know what you're doing. And to put it in perspective, like 2018, I joined a mastermind, and at the time it was like 10 grand. At the time, I had never spent 10,000. I'd never spent $1,000 on anything, let alone 10. And I was so scared, sweating, and I told my wife, like, I was so afraid to close that I was like, oh, I got to call my accountant to make sure, because tax, blah blah blah, that I could pay the money. Even didn't have to talk to the accountant, but I was so freaked out to spend the money. But the dude's like, all right, I'm gonna call you back at this time. So I was a nervous wreck from when I hung up to when I knew this dude was calling me. And I told my wife, I was like, yo, at the time, I don't even know if we were married yet. No, we weren't married yet. At the time, I was just like, I'm gonna do this. It's expensive, but this is my logic and reasoning why. And she's like, then just do it. And the dude called me. I did it. Best decision I ever made. Like, I wouldn't be here if I
awesome.
dropped that 10K. And so now it's sort of just like a foundational part of our relationship. Like, I'll tell her about it, even though she can't grasp it entirely. But she's still a part of it.
I mean, any married or not significant other or whatever, there are so many supportive significant others behind the scenes of entrepreneurs that I think that gets looked over, and how foundational that can be. And so these big changes, and I know that this hasn't dramatically impacted like the pace of your life or whatever, but it's still a change, and it's awesome to have support like that.
Yeah, dude. I mean, like, even as starting a family, having a baby and another one on the way soon, it's like, I wouldn't be able to work as much as I do without her picking up, doing stuff at home to give me the ability to sit here at this desk and earn, So it really is a team effort, just like running a company with the employees. Not to say my wife's an employee, but it's really a team effort. We have to be aligned and on getting stuff done. So yeah, I don't know.
Same. Yeah, I have 3, and I'm, my wife is a saint. So
yeah, I can't imagine. I always tell her she's stronger, tougher than I am. I'm a little bitch. That's what I always tell her.
That's awesome. I don't know if I'm going to encourage my wife to call me that, but I'll. Oh, okay.
She definitely doesn't call me that. I just self-identify.
Okay.
I'm weaker than you.
That's funny. So it's not a green light just to call you a little bitch.
No. That's funny. She did,
Awesome. Well, congrats, man. I'm really, and also just following your gut.
Thanks, dude.
I think that it's something that I've become a lot more confident in the last 2 or 3 years, is when I'm really convicted about something, and like in my gut, like I'm able to trust that more and more and more. And I still always seek advice, just like you did, in counsel from people. I want perspective, but I also am really comfortable in my own skin now, and trusting, what feels right and is like the next step. And, for me, you and I have talked about this. For me, that next big step that I've had to really walk into is buying businesses. I've always been a starter. Let's go.
I'm coming up behind you,
let's do it together. So, I've had to really lean into that and just, admit to myself, like, I can trust myself. And I'm all along the way, I'm getting advice from people that are way ahead of me, which I'm really grateful for. So that's.
Yeah. I think it takes a lot of humility to ask for the advice, though, because a lot of people, like, ego gets in the way, or they don't want to look stupid or whatever. And I think, like, that's been one of the biggest learning experiences for me since I really focused on this journey back in 17, 18. It was just like, having self-awareness and humility in it, and knowing that it's all good not to fucking be the shit all the time.
Well, congrats, man. We're gonna wrap with something I call entertain the audience. So in case our conversation bored people to tears, you get an opportunity to entertain with something that you've consumed recently, business or otherwise. It could be a Netflix show. It could be something you ate that you think was amazing. It could be a book, movie. Like, I don't care. Just something that you want to share with people.
Yeah. So I have two things that they're very closely related. So I'm a huge fan of origin stories, just in business and obviously fantasy with superheroes and stuff like that, Batman, whatever. And I also love champions. I love like triumph, defying the odds, and becoming a champion. So, and some of this might be old news to some folks, but like I just took a 2-week trip to Paris with my family, and it wasn't a vacation. It was it was a business trip in the sense that there was a lot of family stuff that was done there, and so it wasn't like I wasn't chilling, drinking martinis the whole time, unfortunately. So when I came back, I was like, I was getting over being sick. I was like, I need like some inspiration, right? And so what I consumed was The Last Dance, the 97-98 Bulls story. Again,
So
I've seen it probably 3 times, but I'm just like, that's so good. And the other piece that I'm re-consuming again is Shoe Dog, the origin story of Nike. And so obviously they're related because Michael Jordan plays a part, obviously, in both. But for me, just like when I need some inspo or something, I just like I know I can go there and get it. And so I just finished watching The Last Dance, and I'm just like now at this point just picking apart Shoe Dog, not reading the whole thing, but like where I know the inspo is based on my notes in the margins. So now I'm just like the market better watch out is back.
Let's go. Awesome.
Yep. So I hope that's entertaining / helpful.
Thank you for jumping on the podcast, and I am excited to see kind of how this whole deal goes over the next couple of years and what else you're going to do, because I know you have a big appetite. All right.
Yeah, let's buy some stuff. Thanks for having me, dude. I appreciate it.